That is one of the best heavyweight fights I've seen in years. I'm a bit hyped up after the fight, so I don't want to exaggerate, but that may be one of the best heavyweight fights that I've watched live in my lifetime. Huge credit goes to both guys, Dereck Chisora and Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte wins the verdict by split decision. One judge gives it to Chisora, two gives it to Whyte by the finest possible margins. I'll be frank, on my scorecard, I score it 6 rounds each. I had it a draw. The majority of people on my Twitter seem to be leaning towards Dereck Chisora, although there were one or two who had Dillian Whyte slightly up. So this really is a pick 'em fight. And to be honest with you, a lot of the rounds were very, very close swing rounds. They could have gone either way. The Sky commentary team, David Hay in particular, I noticed had scored 3 of the first 4 rounds 10-10 rounds, which, yeah, I mean, debatable how good a punditry that is. But that gives you an indication of how swing these rounds were, because most judges won't score those rounds 10-10. They'll pick a winner. So very, very tough fight to score. A lot of close rounds and, you know, such a good fight. Guts, determinations, brutality. Both guys looked in trouble at various stages of the fight. Both guys showed a huge amount of heart, a huge amount of determination. Even at the end, when both guys were completely out on their feet and had very, very little left to give, they were still throwing absolute bombs. You know, one of the best fights you'll see. Perhaps not the most slick, technical, you know, elite pedigree boxing you're going to see, but if you want an absolute war in the heavyweight division, this is the fight for you. Dillian Whyte, I'm not perturbed that he won this fight by those margins. The crowd seemed to be booing. Obviously, it's an Eddie Hearn card. Dillian Whyte is an Eddie Hearn fighter. I presume a lot of people are going to say that Chisora was robbed. As I say, I scored it a draw. I could make a case for Dillian Whyte to win this fight on merit. For me, he did appear to be the fresher fighter in there. When he was hurt, he seemed to recover a lot more quickly than Dereck Chisora. He seemed to have a slightly higher punch output at various stages of the fight than Dereck Chisora, and Whyte did get that jab up and running more consistently than Chisora. And when the fight became low output, when both guys were tiring, that consistent measuring stick of Dillian Whyte's, that jab, that freshness, allowed Dillian Whyte to score points. Dereck Chisora, to me, is a fighter who's got a lot of miles on the clock at this stage. What's unfortunate is that some of the bad habits Dereck Chisora has been making throughout his entire career persist and have never been ironed out. How many times have we seen Dereck Chisora throw these chopping punches, you know, like literally chopping like this? It got him knocked out against David Hay. Time and time again today, he threw these chopping punches and got countered. How many times have we seen Dereck Chisora standing in the corner, just leaning back with his hands up, trying to take a break for 30 seconds when the other guy jabs him half to death? That happened again. How many times have we seen Dereck Chisora swinging with the looping overhand right from the back of the hall that misses consistently? You know, those flaws in his game were evident left, right and centre today. But there were actually some signs of life from Chisora. I can't remember a fight against a semi-elite opponent where Chisora has landed so many power punches as he did tonight. Dillian Whyte was very, very open defensively. Look how many times Chisora caught him, and Chisora is not a guy with snappy hand speed and fast combinations. Whyte also seemed to be rocked aggressively by Dereck Chisora several times. There's at least 3 occasions in this fight I thought Dereck Chisora could stop Dillian Whyte, and I actually believe a younger, fresher Dereck Chisora would have gone and got the job done. Chisora also threw an uppercut very nicely tonight. 4 or 5 times I can recollect Chisora landing on Dillian Whyte with the uppercut. And really, throughout large proportions of the fight, I thought Dereck Chisora appeared to be the better fighter. But Dillian Whyte, for me, was stronger in the later rounds. Dillian Whyte's jab was more consistent, and Dillian Whyte seemed to rally more. Whilst both men were hurt, whilst both men were tired, Dillian Whyte just seemed to have that slight edge in fitness, that slight edge in freshness that got him to keep establishing his jab. And whilst Chisora was backing off, hanging in the corner, Dillian Whyte would come forward and throw a few punches. And for me, I can see why that nicked it for Dillian Whyte in a very close fight. As I say, I had it a draw, but if I had to pick one guy, I could see why that gave it to Dillian Whyte. You know, he just did a little bit more at certain times in this fight. And for me, that really is a freshness thing. As for Dillian Whyte's upside, very, very hard to determine. There was a few things he did nicely in there. I've talked about his fitness and his will to win. His hand speed looked good. There was some snap to his punches. early on he was working the combinations well, and there was a noticeable difference in hand speed and in work rate compared to Dereck Chisora. But there were concerns. I've already alluded to his lack of defence. His ability to keep range was very poor in this fight. You know, we've seen Chisora be kept at range against the jab, against guys like Tyson Fury, against guys like Kubrat Pulev. You know, Dillian Whyte in recent fights has adopted that sort of jab and move technique, and we saw him early on try and establish that jab. But Dillian Whyte fundamentally is not an outside boxer jabber type. He's more of a scrapper, and I'm afraid he reverted to type at times tonight. Partly because it's in his nature, partly because he actually couldn't keep Chisora off him with his jab. You know, that Chisora that we saw tonight wasn't there when he fought Pulev, wasn't there when he fought Tyson Fury, but that's because those guys fundamentally are more elite boxers than Dillian Whyte was. And for me, in many ways, Dillian Whyte's sort of initial tactic of trying to box from long was actually flawed against Dereck Chisora. What Dillian Whyte did do well was he countered Chisora well off the ropes. He put good combinations together. He had the edge in hand speed, he had the edge in work rate, he had the edge in fitness and freshness, and that narrowly nicked it for Dillian Whyte. I personally think Chisora did a lot better than I expected. I thought this would be an easier win for Dillian Whyte. I thought Dillian would win. I thought Chisora would have spells of effectiveness, but I thought Dillian Whyte would probably win by a more comfortable margin than he did. I was actually surprised at how effective Dereck Chisora was at times there in the fight. And for me, I do have questions about how high Dillian Whyte will go. You know, that Dereck Chisora has got a few more years on him and a few more miles on the clock than the Dereck Chisora we've seen in previous fights. But I have never seen Dereck Chisora land with those looping punches with such regularity. I've never seen Dereck Chisora hurt a top drawer opponent like that before. I've never seen Dereck Chisora walk through the jab with such ease before. So I'm really in my head seeing where do I view Dillian Whyte at this point. I do think he's above British level. I'm not 100% sure he's a European level fighter. You know, if you throw him in with the mix of the Heleniuses, the Pars, the Kubrat Pulevs, I'm not 100% sure at this stage he's winning those fights. You know, maybe you could look at Dillian Whyte versus David Price, but that being a competitive matchup. But quite frankly, having seen this fight tonight, I've got to say that I view the rematch as the sensible option. I think the rematch would potentially be sold as a pay-per-view fight headliner in its own right. And I think after that, it would generate substantial interest. You know, the WWE style stuff is there outside of the ring. You know, there's all the hype and beef and bad blood outside of the ring. Now we know that the fight is the propensity to deliver inside the ring. And if Dereck Chisora could just whip himself into a bit better shape, and that's hard given the stage he's at in his career, and you know that's hard given the amount of miles he's had on the clock. But if Dillian Whyte could just if Dereck Chisora could just whip himself into a slightly better physical condition and physical shape, that fight could have gone the other way tonight. I mean, one of the judges scored it to Dereck Chisora as it was. You know, real good fight this. One of the best fights that I've seen for a long time. And certainly, I would love to see a rematch of that. I'd absolutely love to see a rematch of that. And, you know, if it was made, I would be first in the queue to buy a ticket for that fight. Probably not the classiest accent. You look at both of these guys and do you see either of these guys picking up a world title? Probably not. Do you see either of these guys having the class of you know, in terms of some of the other contenders, do you see these guys being the elite of the contender list out there? Probably not. But the fight delivered in every level for me. And it's really one that got the blood pumping and I couldn't keep my eyes away for a single second. So, yeah, real fight of the year contender. This very much a heavyweight fight of the year contender, definitely. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on it. Firstly, how did you score the fight? Did you have Whyte winning? Did you have Chisora winning? Did you, like I, score it a draw? Do you feel Chisora was hard done by in there? Who do you think had the bigger power in there? For me, at times, I felt Dereck Chisora had the bigger power in there, which is not what I expected. What is the upside for both guys? You know, can one of them go on to win a European title again? Can one of them go on to win a world title? Would you like to see them in against an Anthony Joshua or a Deontay Wilder? And for you, is the rematch the most sensible option? Do you think we can get it on straight away? Would you pay pay-per-view for that as a headline event? Let me know your thoughts. I loved this fight. I'm looking forward to the Joshua matchup now. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, please take the time to subscribe. Thanks for watching.